Hello friends, I welcome you on behalf of Kalam IS, and today we'll be talking about very important topics for the prelims 2025. So guys, when we talk about history section, a lot of questions have been asked from the ancient and the or the medieval section of is concerned. So this is very important and we have to take into consideration this. So when we talk about the most important sections, then let's straight get into what type of questions were being asked by UPSC. Talking about 2024 prelims. So there were questions about archaeological sites like Burzaham, Chandraketugarh, in 2024. There have been questions from Jain and Buddhist sites. There have been questions in prelims 2023 regarding what is stupa. There have been questions on books of the Gupta period. There have been questions on books of the Jains. So there have been questions on Parishashta Parvan. There have been questions on what is stupa. There have been questions on who was the contemporary of whom, like Kalidasa, the great Sanskrit uh, uh, writer, was the contemporary of whom. So this sort of questions UPSC have been asking. But let's get into the very important point, which is what all sections are important for prelims 2025. So the first thing is the Buddhist texts. So this is something which is not dying away. Since 2013, UPSC has been following this pattern of these questions being asked, but the intensity and the depth or the detailing has been more. So let's get started. So there have been Buddhist texts which are being divided into canonical and non-canonical. First thing first, the canonical texts of Buddhists were directly linked to the Gautama Buddha. These are three Pitakas, which are directly the like Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, and Abhidhamma Pitaka. Okay, Buddha's discourse on the doctrinal issues, that is word of Buddha. So Sutta Pitaka is directly that. Vinaya Pitaka is related to monastic rules of Buddha, for codes for monks and nuns. And Abhidhamma, Dhamma means dharma, systemization and analysis of teachings of Sutta Pitaka, that is about dharma. This is talking about the dharma. When it comes to the second part of it, it is related to the non-canonical, which is commentaries, historical accounts, and philosophical dialogues and discussions. And most important dialogue is Milind Panho, where UPSC has asked questions. Milind Panho was written by Nagasena, and this is a dialogue between Buddhist monk Nagasena and Greek king Milinda. So this text becomes very important, and this text has been asked by UPSC. I was talking about the very basics, that what is a stupa. So the question asked by 2023 UPSC prelims is that, does the stupa has a Buddhist origin? The answer is no. Before Buddhism, in the Vedic age, we also talked about stupas. These were relics. These relics were found in 13 to 14th century BC. Okay. Anyway, so these sort of questions were asked by UPSC. So on top of that, what is Vishuddhi Marga, which was asked by UPSC in 2024 prelims? Vishuddhi Marga is a treatise on spiritual purity and enlightenment. Then we had this year's for this year prelims, we can say that Deep Vamsa, Mahavamsas are very important. Historical account of Buddha's life and Buddhism's spread. These Vamsa and Mahavamsas were very important when it comes to extension of Buddhism to Southeast Asia, to be very specific, to Sri Lanka. It is a treatise which was written in Sri Lanka. I hope this is understood. Then we have another sections which are Tripitakas. We were talking about the Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, and Abhidhamma Pitaka. As I said, Sutta Pitaka is important because it contains the Buddha's discourse. Vinaya Pitaka is important because it contains the rules. The reason for the Sutta Pitakas or Vinaya Pitaka was because when Buddha was dying in 480 BC, around 480 BC, there was his disciples Upali and Ananda were doing his last rites. They were taking his last rites, and some people murmured or said from the outside that now Buddha has died, and now we will not have to focus and follow the unnecessary discipline of Buddha. So, this was something which was very hard hitting to the Upali and Ananda, and then only they started to codify rules for the indisciplinary disciples. So that's why we came across Vinay Pitaka. And this was just after the death of Buddha, where the first Buddhist council took place in Rajagriha in 483 BC, where Vinay Pitaka was codified, the rules because of the incident I just talked about. Then Abhidhamma Pitaka is the higher teaching and the moral psychology. Like the Vedic literature has been, the Rig Veda has been divided among lot of mandalas. Similar ways, Abhidhamma Pitakas are divided into Nikayas. Those are collections such as Digha Nikaya, long discourses, and Madhyama Nikaya, that is medium length discourses. Then Khudak Nikaya, smaller texts of Dharmapada and Jatakas. And Jataka stories are kind of moral stories which are very important for the perspective of not only UPSC but life also. Whole life of Buddha, which I'll be discussing in the course of my lecture, is something which can be a question in UPSC. Like when he was he was living a very luxury life, and he had everything. He had a kingdom. He was a kshatriya. He was living a very luxurious life, but he left his family. He left his wife, and he wandered around the world. This was the time period where Upanishads were written, where Vedas were written. So he was searching for truth, he was searching for right knowledge, and he found his disciples Ananda Upali. He went, wandered in the jungles, and what he found was his quench his curiosity for right knowledge could not be uh, what do you call it? He was not satisfied by the discourses of the Vedic literature, be it Rig Veda, Atharveda, or the Upanishads. So he discarded it. So for 6 years, he was 29 when he left his house, and he was 35 when he got the ultimate knowledge. 6 years he wandered, and then he let go all the knowledge he had created. That's why there is a concept of shunyata in Buddhism, and he talks about Madhyam Marg, which I'll be discussing. So, life of Buddhas, as I'm talking about, he was born in Siddhartha in Lumbini, Nepal. Mind you, this is the time. This is the same Lumbini where Ashoka has also gone. Then Buddha, who was Siddhartha, who was king, son of King Sudodana, and Queen Mahamaya. And when he was born, he was predicted to have a great ruler who or a renunciant. So his father was very kind of worried about when the priest said that he will be a renunciator. So that's why he was kept out of the misery of the life. But the circle of life goes on. He got married. He had a son called Rahula, and he leaves them for search of ultimate truth. Then he was married to Yashodhara at the age of 16 and son Rahula. Because of that priest saying, he was married in a very early age. Then the great renunciation where he leaves his house is known as Mahabhinishkamana. When he leaves his house at the age of 29, after encountering, he left his palace in search of. I'll take a moment here. I'll talk about the details of the suffering. The life of Buddha is can be summarized in where he says in Pali language, Jivan Dukkham Mrityu Dukkham. He says that in Pali language, and this has been written in the Pali literature, that when he was wondering, his main philosophical thrust was suffering. So he said, life is full of suffering. Life is full of suffering. When a person is born, he's suffering. When he's living, he's suffering. When he's dying, he is suffering. So the basic thrust of the philosophy of Buddha is suffering. Why am I reiterating it, and how is it important for the uh, uh, prelims? Is his teachers A.R. Alara Kalama and Udara Ramaputta. This is very important for this year prelims. Alara Kalama and Uddaka Ramaputta, but found their teachings inadequate. So these people play a very important role in his life. Predicted severe austerities for 5 to 6 years. So when practice for 5 and 6 years, he was almost wandering like a wanderer. He is wandering here and there in search of truth, in search of right knowledge. But and he is following extremes. He is not eating for months. He's walking, and it is a famous saying from the literature that he is about to die. And one of a dancer, a Nagarvadhu, is giving him some food, and he collapses, and now he is uh, a kind of he gets his senses, and then he realizes that life is not into extremes. And he talks about the Madhyam Marg. The sources are very important. Works of Chandragupta Maurya, Hemchandra's Parishishta Parva. This question was asked by UPSC in 2022. Why is this important? Because Parishishta Parvan is a literature which was written in during Rajputs. Okay, and it talks about Parishishta talks about Chandragupta's link with. So Parishishta Parvan is a text which is about whom? Chandragupta Maurya. And what is it talking about? It is talking about how uh, Chandragupta Maurya dies because he follows Jainism, and Jainism talks about Sanlekhana. I repeat, Jainism in the book Parishishta Parvan, which was written in 12th century AD, not BC. It was written in 12th century AD and talks about his connection about with Jainism. And there's a practice called Sanlekhana. In Sanlekhana, you die because you stop eating food and you leave your uh, uh, body because of this practice. This is a very extreme level aesthetic practice which is being done by the Jains. On top of that, it is very important to mention Vishakadatta's Mudra Rakshas, which was written in the time period of the Gupta. This the contemporary is very important. Gupta's, Vishakadatta's Mudra Rakshas. This is the contemporary of Chandragupta, and it is a drama depicting Chanakya's clever strategies against Chandragupta's. So Chandragupta's enemies were because Chanakya plays a very important role in he's a kingmaker for Chandragupta Maurya. He's its minister, and he's also named as Vishnu Gupta. The very important source of this period is Dandin's Dashakumara Charita. UPSC may ask questions from this also. Literary work not directly related to Chandragupta's provides insightful information about the culture and society of the period. Against Dandin, and this was also in the options, so this is also important. Then Vamasatta Pakshini in 10th century is a commentary on Chanakya and Chandragupta, offering additional perspective of their lives. So the major thrust is on the literary sources, be it Guptas, be it post-Guptas, be it Mauryas, be it Ashokan time period. I'll discuss that also. When it talks about, we talk about the Buddhist text on Chandragupta. Mahavamsa provides an account of Chandragupta's life and reign from the Buddhist perspective. Milinda as I was talking about, offers an insights into the philosophical dialogue and the Buddhist view on Chandragupta's. Mahabhasya, which is a work on grammar, which also mentions about the aspects of the Gupta's life. Mahabhasya, which is basically on grammar, but it talks about the time period of Chandragupta's. Vipavamsha, Buddhist chronicle that offers historical information about Mauryan period, including Chandragupta's reign. Vipavamsha is the same text which talks about how Ashoka's son, Shangamitra and Mahindra are sent to Sri Lanka as a Buddhist monk, proponents of the Buddhism. Then if we talk about Ashoka Vandana, it becomes a very, very important text and Divyadana. Ashoka Vandana may not be asked, but we can expect a question on Divyadana. These are Buddhist texts, provide account of Emperor Ashok and his policies, particularly the spread of Buddhism. We have seen this trend in the past that they have asked questions of Vishuddhi Marga, as I was talking about the Buddhist text. They have talked about Parishishta Parvan. They have also talked about that is it a Buddhist text or a Jain text, as they will say that Milind Panho is a Jain text, but is it is incorrect. It talks about Buddhist. Milind Panho is a Buddhist text. Similar ways, they may say that Parishishta Parvan talks about the life of Buddha, but it's incorrect. Parishishta Parvan talks about Chandragupta Maurya, and it talks about it's a Jain literature. Same goes with Divyadana, which is Ashoka's. It talks about Ashoka and Chandragupta both. Then, if we talk about, we have talked about post-modern period and Buddhist literature. Let's talk about post-modern literature also. So, the fourth Buddhist council was patronized by Kanishka. Postmodern period is also important for certain things like the Sangam literature, which we'll be talking about today, the Satavahanas, because Kanishka, Sangam literature, and Satavahana, all the three were so the literature like Sangam literature, Manimekkalli, Silpadikaram are the contemporary of Fourth Buddhist Council. That means these literatures and Milind Panho, which is a Buddhist text, are contemporaries. Then the Fourth Buddhist Council was located in Srinagar, which is known as Kundalwana, under the presidency of Vashumitra. Vashumitra is a Buddhist monk. Kanishka, a Kushan emperor, was a great patron of Buddhism and initiated this council. This time period is also very important for the patronage of Gandhara and Mathura schools. Please do not miss these things because these are all contemporaries, Gandhara and Mathura schools, along with the Satvana and Sangam literature. Guys, I often repeat, I often make certain parallels between what all things are UPSC going to ask. UPSC may come with Gandhara, Mathura and Amravati school. Amravati school was patronized by Satwan. UPSC may come up with what all things were used, what is the main characteristic of Gandhara school of art and architecture. Just giving you the heads up that the Gandhara school of art and architecture was influenced by Greco-Roman world because Kanishka, Kushanas, Bactrians, these people were coming from northwest frontier of India. When these people stayed in India for more than 500 years, they had a considerable amount of influence on the art and architecture, on the coins, on the trade and relations with the Indians. Similar ways, when we talk about the 12th century, 12th AD, then we saw with the coming of Al-Masudi, Al-Baruni, with the coming of Islam and these invaders, we had a great influence mingling of Persian language with the Indian language, which had a long-term impact not only on the society, but also the culture and the art and architecture. The biggest example is use of domes. Then we often talk about the split of Buddhism during this time period, and we are talking about the first century AD, where Buddhism was divided among Hinayana, the lesser vehicle, and Mahayana, the greater vehicle. The legend of monk Passa is said to have advised Kanishka to convene the post with this council. UPSC has asked questions about what is Hinayana and what is Mahayana. Then the eminent personality is patronized by Kanishka. So UPSC has asked questions about Charak, Amogh Ashwaghosha, Vasumitra, Nagarjuna, and Mathara. So let's understand who were these people. Ashwaghosha was the Buddhist scholar known as who wrote a Buddha Charitra, sacred biography of. So Ashwaghosha was writing Buddha Charita, also composed Sundarananda's Sanskrit Kavya. So he was writing in Sanskrit also. Then Charaka or Charak is the father of Ayurveda, is a contemporary of Kanishka. He authored Charak Samhita, an important text on medicine. This was written in Sanskrit. Also, Shushrut, another key medical text. Then Vashumitra is very prominent philosopher who combined Mahavibhashya, an encyclopedia of philosophy. So they might turn, they will say that Ashwakosha has written Buddha Charita, but that is uh, sorry, Ashwakosha has written Mahavibhashya, but this is incorrect. Vashumitra has written Mahabhashya. Then we will be talking about Nagarjuna. He's Indian Einstein. He proposed the theory of relativity in the form of Praja, uh, uh, Pramita, Samhita. The key proponents of Mahayana school of Buddhism, he founded Madhyamik and Sunyavad school, which emphasizes empty. I would again take a talk about the emptiness and Madhyama. People often get confused between these philosophies. So what happens is emptiness doesn't talk about emptying your thoughts. When we meditate, when we talk about the philosophy of Buddhist, a lot of people assume that the emptiness is related with no thoughts. But in Buddhist philosophy, they say that mind is like a sky and thoughts are like clouds. I repeat, mind is like a sky and thoughts are like clouds. The mind, in the mind, we have a lot of clouds, right? In the sky, there are a lot of clouds, but the the main, basis of the mind is clarity. That is, uh, uh, clouds come and go, but it doesn't change the basics of the sky. Is the mind. Okay, so the sky is mind and thoughts are clouds. So sky, in the sky, or as far as Shunyata is concerned, the mind will be going here and there. Mind will be doing this, mind will be thinking something else. Focused, you'll have to concentrate. If some things come in your mind, let them come and let them go. Let them come, go. And you just empty your mind like that. Emptiness, I repeat, is not meaning that you will empty your mind. If you are emptying your mind, you are dead. Okay, so this is the basic philosophy. Then uh, Mat, Mathara, a minister of Karishka court, noted from the exceptional intelligence, and Iglesias, a Greek engineer believed to have supervised the construction of stupa at Purushpira, that is Peshawar. In Gandhara School of Art, in the recent times, we saw a lot of Talibanis have kind of destroyed the what do you call it? Uh, the Buddhist sites in Afghanistan. Then epics during Gupta's time. We have talked about the Mauryan time and post-Mauryan time. We have talked about the literatures. Let's talk about the epics during Gupta's time. Then we all know that these were compiled, Ramayana and Mahabharata, in 4th century. Then stories of the victory of good over evil, and Rama and Krishna were considered as the incarnations of Vishnu. When we are talking about the epics during Gupta's time, so the Gupta time is known for its art and architecture. Gupta time is known for its compilation, and it is the golden period of the history of India because the famous Vikramshila University and the Nalanda University were were constructed during this period. During this period, Kalidasa came up with his Great books like Raghuvansham, Ritu Samhara, Abhikyat Shakuntalam, and many more. We'll be discussing them. So, Puranas were compiled, we came across the cult of Bhagavatism, and we saw a re-emergence of Buddhism in Hinduism in 3rd to 4th century. We also came across in 2nd to 3rd century the reincarnation of Vishnu as a boar. That is, Vishnu cult was coming up. So Vishnu cult was followed by tribals. The Vishnu cult was followed by Vaishyas, with lower class caste people. What it did was it created a stiff competition with the other sects like Buddhism, because Buddhism was now adopting in 5th to 6th century Sanskrit with the coming up of Vajrayana. Vajrayana is the third form. We see Buddhism was divided among Hinayana and Buddhist Mahayana. Then it was also, there was a question on Swatantrikas and Sthanakvasis. So these are also part of Buddhism. Then Buddhism came up with a new thought called Vajrayana, which was following Buddhist, Sanskrit. Then the Gupta period marks the beginning of the writing of Puranas, Vishnu Puran, Agni Puran, Matsya Puran. Then we have Shiva Purana, worship of Shiva. So we also saw a cult of Bhagavatism was coming. Then I will take a moment here. I will in great work with the notable compilations of Kalidasa. The first literature he wrote was So here we are talking about the very important literature, that is Ritu Samhara. So Ritu Samhara is a poem describing a cycle of seasons. When we talk about the Kalidasa's age, it is called as the golden age of Sanskrit literature. Not every work of Kalidasa was a golden work, but it started off as a very important secular literature. So it is written, adopted, it is compiled, and it is well read by the people of India, well taken. As per the secular literature, it came up, it bounded different kings, queens, and love stories with the ritus or the seasons, and it kind of gave a very important part of literature with the society, with the cults associated with the mythologies of India. That's why this is very important. And Kalidasa is the contemporary of Chandragupta. Chandragupta II or Chandragupta. So the first literature he wrote was about a poem, that is Ritu, in Hindi is called Veda, describing cycles of seasons. The second thing he wrote was Raghuvamsha. So it's a poem about Raghu dynasty, Vishnu's cosmic role. So gradually he is writing secular literature also. He is talking about the Raghu dynasty, where the cosmic role of Vishnu is kind of shown. Then he talks about Meghduta. Again, a poem about the love sending a cloud messenger. And the literature, the writings, the kind of literature he is writing is influencing the generations. I'm taking time because these are very important chronologically also as far as UPSC is concerned. But when we talk about very great works, These are Abhijat Sakuntalam and Malvika Agni. So, drama Abhijat Sakuntalam is a drama about between King Dushyanta and Shakuntala, considered globally, literally classical, literature. So Abhijat Sakuntalam was not written just like that. There have been literatures like Ritu Samhara, Meghaduta, Malvika Agnimitram before Abhijat Shakuntalam was written, and which was recognized by UNESCO as a literally work of Indian. Then we had Kumar Sambhava epic about the birth of Lord Kartikeya and Sati system. You see, when we talk about the Indian history, when we talk about the Indian literature, when we talk about the Indian culture, we often come across things that are imposing. But this literature was not imposing at all. This literature was something coming up from you see. From the masses, and it was being read by the masses also, leading to expansion of cult of gods in a secular way. Then we have next as the notable features, we were talking about other literatures like use of humor, distinctions, Sanskrit with the higher caste, Prakrit with the lower caste and women. So these literatures were often transferred, translated to other literatures, other languages. Invocation of Shiva at the start of the work. Then we have important literature in Shudraka named Mirchkatikam. So it is literally play card, a drama about a love between a Brahmin. So this is also very important historical work, and this is also important for UPSC. It was a 5th century literature. Then we have Vishakadatta, who talks about Mudra Rakshas, is a historical play about the rise of Gupta Maurya. So Vishakadatta's writing are kind of political writings. We can call it political fiction. How the works of Chanakya, sometimes these are historically correct, sometimes these are historically fiction, are very important. So Vishakadatta was writing in the 5th century, 500 to 600 years later than the rise of Chandragupta, but they are giving insights about how Chanakya played a very, very important role in bringing Chandragupta to the throne. Devi Charaguptam work focusing on Chandragupta's Maurya's reign. Very, very important. Then we talk about Bhairavi. Notable work is Kiratarjunya. Bhairavi, also the 5th century, is the epic about the combat between Arjuna and Lord Shiva in the guise of a hunter. Somewhere or the other, we also come across not only Kalidasa, but these literary people are kind of writing on epics. So epics become very important during the Gupta times. That's why UPSC may be asking these questions. Dandin, notable work of Kavya Darshana, the treatise of Sanskrit poetics. Dasa Kumara Charita, a collection of stories of 10 princes. Dasa Kumara Charita. Then we have Amar Simha, a comprehensive Sanskrit lexicon where he is talking about how Sanskrit has to be used, and the thing comes from everything is inspired from the work of Kalidasa. Then we have a Bhasha, a notable work of Madhyama Vyoga, Duta Ghatotkacha, and Charudatta, notable plays showcasing classical Sanskritic drama. So, Sanskrit is reinventing, Hinduism is kind of reinventing itself, and Bhatti is a notable work of Ravana Vadha epic, illustrates Rama battle with Ravana and serves as a grammar's guide. Then Vishnu Sharman's Panchataritra, or Vishnu Sharma's collection of fables, moral lessons using both prose and verses. So this is also very, very important from the perspective of UPSC. Then we talk about, if we talk about the literature post, Guptas, then for UPSC prelims, literature of Delhi Sultanate becomes also very important, because UPSC has asked questions about Kalana, Raj Tarangini. Let's first start with that. Amir Khusro writes in 13th century in Khazan ul Fatah, speaks about Alauddin's conquest in 1380s. Is the famous, sorry, 1280s. Amir Khusro's Khazan ul Fatah speaks about Alauddin's conquest. His famous work Tughlaqnama deals with the rise of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. Sanskrit and Persian functioned the link language between Delhi Sultanate. Zia Naqshbandi was the first translated Sanskrit stories into Persian. So these literatures are also important for prelims really. Then we have Tutunama, or the Book of Parrot, became very popular, translated into Turkish in the later many European languages. The famous Rajatarangini of Kalana belonged to the period of Zainul Abidin, the ruler of Kashmir. Then we often talk about Sanskrit works on medicine, on music, were translated by none other than Al-Biruni in his Kitab, the most famous work. Regional literatures also developed during this time period. When I am talking about 11th and 12th century India, there was a rise of regional principalities. When we see the rise of regional principalities, we often come across rise of Rajputs, rise of Tomaras, Rathors, rise of Chandelas, and not to forget the Chandela School of Architecture, the Rajasthan School of Architecture, the School of Architecture in Uttar Pradesh, in northwest frontier of India, and in Delhi region. Later, these Jain temples were converted to mosques. We all know about it. There have been a series of, you see, protests. There have been a series of debates and discourses, but we are not getting that. But the point is, we must understand that what sort of things were asked by UPSC. I've also made a video on the modern Indian history regarding the questions UPSC may ask. You see, when I talk about this, then Chand Bardai's famous Hindi poem, that is Prithviraj Raso, becomes very, very. So Bengali literature also developed during Nusrat Shah patronized translation of Bharata into Bengali, Mahabharata into Bengali. So this is just a heads up of the early medieval India and the ancient India. You see, today we have discussed a great amount of work regarding the ancient Indian literature. I have deliberately skipped the Harappan times, because in Harappan times what is important is the sites. the districts they are in, and the famous so in Harappan civilization, the cities are very important, like Dholavira, Rangpur, Lothal. The districts, their locations, they are in Rajasthan, like Dholavira is in Rajasthan. In Gujarat, we have Lothal. Rangpur is there in India. In you see Haryana, they have Rakhigadi, they have Burzaham. UPSC has asked questions on Burzaham. Is in J&K. Indus Valley site. So I deliberately left these sites. This is one part of Harappa. Then we can talk about the uh, exported items like turquoise, lapis lazuli, cotton, cloths, and food stuff and others. And imports. So this is one part of it. You have to please identify. In Harappa, agriculture items, economy, culture, and religion becomes very, very important. Was they focusing on male deity or female goddess? Was they using pottery, or we say a term called ceramics? Ceramics and pottery are same. What sort of economy do they have? Do they have society? Sorry, society stratified or egalitarian? So we come across, as per the archaeological sources, that their society was kind of stratified because there was series of upper mound and lower mound where we saw some people were wearing expensive clothes, some people were not. Some people were living in higher town, some people were not. Some people were living in similar houses, some people were not. We also came across items of export, that was food stuff and a kind of what do you call it, food and uh, gems and jewelry. It can be pottery. As far as agriculture production is concerned, the cotton is important, the barley is important, maize is important, and what all things what are not grown is also very important. So you can broadly identify, because I have not dealt with this because this is the first chapter and everybody understand this. What I have dealt with is the literally sources. I'll again come up with all the videos if you allow me to, because in this smaller time period it's very hard to deal with everything, but I've tried my best. You see, when it comes to history, it's a vast subject. So we have to pick up themes, especially when you are left with only 4 to 5 months of the prelims. So we are sitting in December, January. So what we have is high quality 4 months, because you'll have to prepare other subjects also, like polity, technical subjects like science and tech. So there is a need to prioritize, to understand, to analyze what are the meaty areas. I'm not saying whichever points, I'm not saying should not be studied. I repeat, I'm not saying that whichever points, I'm not saying in the modern Indian history, which I'll be taking today, are not important. But what I'll be talking about are especially important as far as prelims 2025 is concerned. One word of caution: UPSC did not ask questions of geography and environment from 2017 till 2022-23. In 2024, we saw a good amount of 25 to 30 questions being asked from geography and environment. Then, what? Because the UPSC is not asking questions from the modern Indian history, they are asking only 2 to 3 questions. It UPSC is very unpredictable. You never know whenever UPSC may come up with, say, 15 to 12 questions of the modern Indian history. And I'm not saying they'll be easier questions like what is the Pitt's India Act and what is not. They will ask Pitt's India Act or Regulating Act, and they'll ask a very difficult aspect of these. You see, acts. As you all know that UPSC has asked questions from the Act of 1935 in the prelims 2024. They have asked the Act of they have asked Cripps Mission in 23-24. They have asked you see, revolutionaries activities of Jugantar. They have asked Gadar Party. So they did not ask where is the headquarter of Gadar Party, which is San Francisco, but they asked about who of them. You see, the Bengalis revolutionaries were an active participant of the Gadar movement, which is not known to a lot of people. Bari Kumar Ghosh, Aurobindo Ghosh, Ras Bihari Bose, and whosoever. And you see, the answer was Ras Bihari Bose, of course, but just to give you the heads up. So, all I'm trying to say is, from my experience of last 10 to 15 years, UPSC has been unpredictable. So, you cannot leave modern Indian history just for the sake of saying that ancient or medieval history is being asked nowadays. Let's leave modern Indian history. So that is a kind of, and that happened. I've been telling people, you can go back to the Kalam IAS's website and you can see Industrial Revolution and World War I. The question in mains 2024 about the World War I and Industrial Revolution are being taught by me, and I'm saying this with great respect and honor and responsibility. So, whichever aspects are not important should also be respected, duly respected and studied. But all I'm saying is you have to prioritize your time. So, without wasting any time, let's get started. So, the map on my back shows a lot of stories. I'll take a moment and just want you to go through this image of 18th century India. Because a lot of questions have been asked from these sections. So, what I'm trying to tell you is, you first of all must understand that 18th century was a time of turmoil. So, a lot of questions have been asked by UPSC in recent past about these themes. So, you must understand when, after the death of Aurangzeb in 1707, there have been series of wars like Carnatic Wars, Anglo-Mysore War, Anglo-Maratha War, Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar, that is 1764. All I'm saying is just go through them once. In December or January month, just go through them once, get an understanding of how these things are panning out. And this is not a priority. You should understand these topics and how you see East India Company is getting inside the India, where after the Battle of Plassey they get this part, gradually they start getting this part, then they start getting this part, then they start invading this part, and in by the end of you see 18th century they get hold over most of India, and after 1820s 13 Anglo-Afghan wars they get the hold over this area as a you see a subsidiary of these people. So starting from this, let's get started. And I again tell you, please understand that Mughal authority was confined till here after 1757 or 1760s. Then Nawab of Awadh declares himself independent. Nawab of Bengal declares himself independent. Nizam of Hyderabad is Asaf Daula is declaring himself independent in 1720s and carves out Nizam. You see, Hyderabad. What do you call it? He is the Nizam of Hyderabad. All I'm trying to say is, please understand 18th century as a politically speaking, is a fragmented polity. Okay, with this, let's get started. Okay, so if we talk about the most Indian chapters, let me first tell you a question which was asked by 2023 UPSC prelims. Who among the following rulers of Vijayanagara Empire constructed a large dam across Tungabhadra river and canal came adequate several kilometers long from the river capital city? This was Devaraya I. So all I'm trying to say is, the questions have been asked from greater details in the 15th century Indian history. There was another question of which all ports are there as far as British British people were concerned. So now in this you can see that Bharuch port they had given uh, uh, Surat port, okay, Kolkata port and Chennai port, and these are the ports being occupied by the Britishers. So you must understand what all ports they have given. E, they have given P to Portuguese, they have given Tarapur, P Mumbai, English, Goa Portuguese, Cannanore Portuguese. There was another question which was asking that was Cannanore uh, 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 Portuguese port or an English port? So the answer is not English port, it's an Portuguese port. They may ask about Mahe port, they may ask about Karakal port, they may ask about Tracobar, which was a Dutch port. So in this, please revise all these ports that, and you know, the story goes back to where Britishers came and they had wars with either Carnatic War or Anglo-Mysore War or Anglo-Maratha War. All I'm trying to say is there's no time to get into the details of all those things, but all I'm trying to say is please understand, read those chapters one by one in the NCERTs or any standard textbook. Since it is not given, I think, in the Spectrum textbook, the older one I'm talking about. I don't know about the new book. Anyway, so this was the type of questions they asked. Another sort of questions they asked is what sort of things were introduced in India and what sort of things were exported from India. Okay, so Europe from minted silver bars and they imported pepper, cinnamon, cloves, mace, cardamom, coffee, sugar, tea, exoticas from India. Okay, so all I'm trying to say is, and they what they used to get from Bengal? Cloth, yarn, silk, indigo. Pepper. Please understand these sort of questions are also asked by UPSC. Okay. First thing first, the ports which were occupied by either British or by French or by Dutch has to be understood. They have asked Cannanore, they have asked Bharuch. Please understand, Surat was also an English port, Daman was a Portuguese port, Tarapur, Mumbai was a Tarapur was not Indian English port, it was a Portuguese port. And ultimately what happens is after the Battle of Plassey, Buxar, and you see all sort of uh, Anglo-Mysore wars and the series of wars, English come up as a superior force in India. This is how they start questions from. Then again, a very meaty area as far as this time period is concerned, modern Indian history, is the acts, because last year there was a question on regulating act, Pitt's India Act, Charter Act of 1793 and Act of 1833. So I'll end this discussion here that these points are very important. These acts are very important from the prelims perspective, because in 2023 they asked a question regarding the Act of 1833. The question said that by which of the following acts was the Governor General of India, Bengal was designated as the Governor General of India. So it was only Bentinck, the first Governor General of India, and who was the first Governor General of Bengal? He was Hastings. So these sort of very simple questions, but UPSC may come up with any difficult questions, like who were the law member, what was the executive council look like, who were the education other members of Viceroy's, sorry, Governor General's council kind of. Then coming back to, I'll get to this in a little later. All I'm trying to say is the land revenue policy becomes very, very important from the perspective of UPSC, because it had certain backings. These questions were asked in 2022 also. When we talk about the UPSC questions, then apart from the questions on my left which were related to the acts, every year, not any single year, like Buddhism and Jainism in ancient India, if somebody is not studying this, then he's somewhere or the other cheating himself, and there's the smart work is not happening. So if we talk about the land revenue system, we all know that zamindari system was introduced by Cornwallis in 1793. That is also called as permanent settlement. So it was introduced in which areas? Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, Varanasi. Prima facie, question looks very easy. That permanent settlement ही तो है. But when UPSC keeps on asking questions on regular themes, sometimes what they do is they'll ask about the division. They'll say that 1/11th of the share belong to zamindars and 10/11th belong to East India Company. They'll change it. They'll say 10th 11th will go to the East India Company and 1/11 will be asked by 10th 11th will be given by zamindars, taken by zamindars, something like that. Or what they'll do is zamindars were given the right to collect the rent from the peasants. They'll say they will collect in permanent settlement, they will directly collect the revenue from the peasants. We all know that that was the main motto, that in order to have a certain class which was a mediator before the Bengali, Bihar, people from Bihar, Odisha, then there was a need to have a mediator between East India Company and local magnates, so that revenue could be extracted, and revenue was extracted regularly. That was the main motto behind that. So in order to have regular supply of revenue, this was introduced. Okay, it was a permanent settlement, and zamindars were recognized as the owner of the land. While zamindars become the owner of the land, the actual farmer became tenant, and the land was transferable, and land was a sellable property. Or if you do not pay the rent on time, then the land will be given to somebody else as per the permanent settlement. Land was hereditary and land was transferable. You can pass on your land to your son, but if you do not pay rent of time on time, the land will be sold to the highest bidder, because whosoever pays the rent on time to the East India Company will have a regular hereditary rights over the land. So land becomes hereditary on one hand, but land is also transferable. That's where UPSC can play. So you must understand this fact from the perspective of UPSC prelims. Very important point I forgot. Tax was paid to be paid in cash. That is also very important. Before introducing this, the tax could be paid in kind. So the UPSC will play, they will say that the tax will be paid in kind, not in cash. Then another very important point is Raiyatwari settlement, which was introduced in where? In Madras Presidency and Bombay Presidency. Again, when was it introduced? 1820. Who introduced it? Thomas Munro. Where was it introduced? Bombay, Madras, and parts of Assam. These are the primary points. Then, excuse me, what was another very important point? Then, Raiyatwari settlement gave ownership rights to the peasants. What is the difference between permanent settlement and this? In permanent settlement, the land was given to the zamindars, and the tenant, who was the actual tiller of the land, was a peasant was a tenant. Here, the peasant is the owner of the land. That is the difference. One difference is geographical difference, where the permanent settlement is introduced in Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, Varanasi, and Raiyatwari is introduced in mainly South India, Bombay, Assam, and Madras Presidency. When I say Bombay, lot of areas of Maharashtra, and lot of areas of Karnataka are under this settlement. When I say Madras, I am using the term for parts of Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, present day Chennai, Tamil Nadu. So this is a vast geographical area which I am talking about. So then the Raiyatwari system, the revenue was 50% where the lands were dry, 60% in the irrigated lands. So here we see the land is kind of taxed on a variety of the land. So UPSC may ask that this revenue system was on the basis of the fertility of the soil. Then you'll have to say yes, it was dependent on the fertility of the soils, and in permanent settlement there was no such case. Again, through ownership of land was vested with farmers, excessive tax imposed them. Further, the tax rates were frequently increased. So in permanent settlement, the taxes were kept for the perpetuity for longer period, but here it was frequently increased, leading to impoverishment. And the very important point is the Deccan Rights of 1875. So most of the revolutions were related to peasants, or other revolutions were related to excessive land revenue from these poor peasants. Then we talk about the Mahalwari settlement, which was introduced by Holt Mackenzie. Where was it introduced? In the northwest parts of Punjab, Haryana, Agra, Gangetic Valley, and the central provinces. When I say the central provinces, we all know that in Bengal we had permanent settlement till introduced till Banaras. In South India we had Raiyatwari. So the area left was northwest frontier and present day Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, Rajasthan. So here this was introduced. So Mahal means a combination of what do you call it? Villages. So 10, 20, 30, 40 villages were made one Mahal, and the revenue will be collected by one senior villager or a senior zamindar. So what happens is, this also led to similar situations like the permanent settlement. This has nothing to do with Raiyatwari, because Raiyatwari was very, very different. It has also to do with the kind of landed magnates available. In Bengal, there were a lot of zamindars. In South India, there are no concept of zamindari. Okay, so the landlords or the owners of lands, the Rayats are themselves having a bigger patch of land. So, entire Mahal or village was considered as a single unit for tax collection as per the Mehalwari settlement. And the village headman, that's what I was telling you, or the village committee was assigned the responsibility of collection of taxes. Then another very important point, another theme for the prelims 2025 is the socio-religious reform movement. I'll tell you a very important question which was asked by prelims in this regard about the socio-religious reform or the social reform. The question was, who among the following was associated as the secretary of Hindu Female College, which was later named as Bathune Female School? The options were the time period is this. Bathune School, established for female education, which was earlier called as the Hindu Female School in Bengal. Devendranath Tagore was the father of Rabindranath Tagore. So you must understand that Devendranath Tagore's father was Dwarkanath Tagore. Just for information, he was a very big banker, a businessman. Devendranath Tagore himself was a businessman and a banker and a social reformer. So, but the answer here is Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. So, some facts about Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar was not only a social reformer, he was instrumental for the passing of the Widow Remarriage Act of 1856. So, the ins and outs, the details of the you see, Widow Remarriage Act has to be understood, has to be ratified. First thing, and second thing is you must understand that female social reformers are also very very important from the prelims 2024 2025. So we cannot and we should not leave any stone unturned when it comes to the female reform movements and the acts passed for the betterment of female. Let's understand them one by one. The first very important act was the Sarda Act, which was passed in 1929. The act was known as Child Marriage Restraint Act. And what was the aim? Prohibiting child marriage. Okay, this is very important. Hindu Women's Right to Property Act of 1937 to address the right of Hindu women to inherit her property. Again, very important is the Factories Act, which focus on the regulating the working conditions of women in the factories. Again, Hindu Marriage and Divorce Act, which was passed in 1954 to address the issues related to Hindus' marriage and their divorce. Another very important is Special Marriage Act, provided a special form of marriage for people of India and all the nations in foreign countries, irrespective of religion, faith. Then very important points are women organizations. We also a lot of times focus on the organizations which are men led. UPSC has asked questions about these things. UPSC has asked a question on Rukmabai case of 1884. Okay, so as per this case, it was related to women's right to gain education, age of consent 1891, or restitution of conjugal rights. The answer of this question is it was related to women rights, it was related to age of consent, it was also related to conjugal rights of women. So these sort of questions are always asked by UPSC. Another question was asked regarding to the Desher Katha. So please Google these things, get into details of these questions, because I do not want to reiterate the fact of how important the past year papers are for the prelims 2024. A lot of people say, and we have also been saying that not only the questions, even the UPSC asks questions from the options. So a lot of times I talked about Devendranath Tagore, which was an option. I talked about Annie Besant. They have asked questions about Annie Besant. They have asked questions about Brahma Samaj, Arya Samaj, Tattva Bodhini Sabha. You see, even the examinations which are being taken by UPSC, like EPFO, EO, AO, EPFO, assistant commandant, you must get hold over the question as well as the options as far as history and other sections are concerned. Coming back to the women organization, one of the very important organization is Bharat Sri Mahamandal. So Sarla Devi Chaudhrani convened the first meeting, and objective was to promote the education of women, abolition of Parda system, and improvement of the socio-economic and political status of the women in India. This was the famous lady named as Sarla Devi Chaudhrani. It was on her insistence in 1931, in civil disobedience movement, Gandhi included, Gandhi, took up a lot of women, and that was the non-cooperation movement, specifically on the insistence of Sarla Devi Chaudhrani, this lady. Gandhi did a special appeal to women that you should not be home centric and you should come up and fight for the freedom of India. So it was her insistence that she was saying that, and she publicly told that to Gandhiji, that why are you, isn't it very hypocritic that on one hand you are saying that women should break the shackles of the social norms, but you are not letting women to go in the front. So it was only his insistence, Gandhi's insistence, after having conversation with Sarla Devi Chaudhrani, the founder of Bharat Sri Mahamandal, that these women were very instrumental to the civil disobedience movement. Coming back to the second one, Ladies Social Conference, which was established in 1904. The main aim was to reform society and for empowerment of women, and it was founded by Ramabai Ranade in Bombay, under the parental organization of Indian National Congress. So this was under the Indian National Congress. This has to be understood. Ramabai Ranade is the wife of M.G. Ranade, social reformer, public intellectual. Okay, then Arya Mahila Samaj, founded by Pandita Ramabai Saraswati. Again, women empowerment and improvement of the education syllabus of Indian women. Again, very important, National Council of Women in India, formed as the national branch of International Council of Women, advocated social reform among women, and members were Tarabai Premchand, Safi Tayyabji, Maharani Sucharu Das, Cornelia Surabji. Then a very important point which I would like to make here is the establishment of All India Women Conference. This was founded by Margaret Crescents with an egalitarian approach. Objective was itself principle of social justice, integrity, equal rights and opportunities for women, and work towards various legislative reforms before and after the India's independence. Then a lot of questions are being asked from the revolutionary activities and the phases of the revolutionary activities. So this question also needs to be taken care of. This theme also needs to be taken care of. What used to happen is before 2022, a lot of questions were asked from the moderate side, like Gandhi Irwin Pact. There have been questions on moral mentor reform, which is indeed also important, but the revolutionary side of the Indian national movement is kind of somewhere on the other negated. So let me first detail in detail you know uh, deal with this, because there is a need to understand this topic and to prepare this, and there is very less material in the spectrum. This is given in spectrum, I think. I've also included other standard textbooks. First, this has three phases. Let me first tell you what are the different phases are. So the first phase is starting off by the establishment of the uh, Anushilan Samiti in 1904 by the Bengali people, and they used to appoint mentors like dadas. We also come across two sides of Anushilan Samiti. So the first phase of the revolutionary activities in India are starting with the Anushilan Samiti. So Anushilan Samiti is inspired by by the constant poking by the Britishers. They said that men in uh, uh, Bengal are effeminate. That means the martial races of India, they did not include Bengalis. This somewhere or the other questioned the psyche of people in Bengal, and these people established Anushilan Samiti, and they were targeting the police officers of the British police, the judges, and these people were kind of killing them. This is the first phase. With there was a mentorship program going on, where the senior leaders were kind of mentoring the young people, and a lot of gyms were established, and there was a kind of establishment of cult of violence. So we call it a cult of violence. Okay. So this was the first phase of the initial Samiti. I'll take a moment. You can note this out. Then, if we talk about the second phase of revolutionary, if we talk about the second phase of this, then second phase is seen by shift of these activities outside India. Then we see establishment of Ghadar Party, which had its headquarter in San Francisco, USA. We also see activities of Shyamji Krishna Verma, activities of Bhikaji Kama, activities of India House, and these activities were centered around Germany, France, Paris, and USA. I'll take them in detail, just giving you the heads up. So the first phase was related to individual heroism, where the police officers were targeted, they were killed. A lot of the Kingsford, the magistrate of Muzaffarpur was targeted by the Bengali revolutionaries. Uh, uh, and this is the second phase where they understood that there is a need to bring in more money, more arms and ammunition in India if we have to fight with the superior forces of the British. So there was a need outside India. They mobilized the soldiers, you see Sikh peasants, educated people of outside India, and they established India House. They established Jugantar House and all. So this is the second phase, and the third phase is I'll be dealing with in a little later. Again, coming back to this, there are three phases. First, second, I have told you. The third phase is where these people come to the mainstream, where these revolutionaries come to the mainstream, like C.R. Das, Masterji, Masterda, he was called as, I'll deal with him. So these people come to the mainstream politics, like Bhagat Singh. He is a revolutionary, but he is also the member of the Indian National Congress. That is the third phase. First phase, individual heroism. Second phase, they work outside India, and the third phase, they come back to India and they start their mobilization within the broader framework of the Gandhian politics, that is the Indian national politics. So that's how we look at it. Now, the facts of it. This was the analytical part. The major activities in Bengal became the main center. Why? Because there have been classification of Indian races among martial race and non-martial race. Bengalis were considered to be effeminate. This was somewhere or the other disrespect to the Bengali youth. So in order to give a reply, there was establishment of Jugantar or Anushilan Samiti. Then activities and many secret societies emerged during this period. The organization of revolutionary activities named by Anushilan Samiti and Jugantar Society. Please remember these things. UPSC may come up questions from this. In 1902, the first revolutionary group were formed in Midnapur by Jitendranath Basu and Anushilan, and it was called as an Anushilan Samiti Calcutta, founded by Pramottar Mittar. Again, revolutionary groups founded by Jitendranath Basu and Anushilan Samiti in Calcutta was founded by Pramottar Mittar and other members like Jitendranath Banerjee, Pari Ghosh, etc. But these societies remained dominant till 1907 and 1908. This is the extent, 1890s till 1907, 1908. Then the second phase comes, I'll come to that. In 1906, a group of Anushilan members like Bari Ghosh and Bhupendra Datta started weekly newspaper called Yugantar newspaper to advocate revolutionary activities. In order to expand the cult of violence, this Yugantar newspaper was published by Bari Ghosh and Birendranath Datta. So, Ras Bihari Bose and Sachindranath Sanyal organized the secret societies, expanded its operation in Punjab, Delhi, and Uttar Pradesh. That's why Raj Bihari Bose is very instrumental with the Gadar movement, which was working outside India. Again, there is a lot of people say that Raj Bihari Bose, being a Bengali in 19th century, how can he be instrumental with the Gadar movement? But this line signifies these people organized a secret society, expanded its operation in Punjab, Delhi, and Uttar Pradesh and United Provinces. Raj Bihari Bose was in touch with Ajit Singh. Ajit Singh was an uncle of great Bhagat Singh. Okay, Raj Bihari Bose was in touch with Ajit Singh and they mobilized each other. Somewhere they were mobilizing bombs in Delhi area, Meerut area, sometimes in Bihar, sometimes in this thing. When they were killing the what do you call it? Uh, uh, the infamous police officers. The big event of this revolutionary trend was in April 1908, where Praful Chaki and Khudiram Bose threw a bomb on the carriage of Kingsford, an unpopular district judge of Muzaffarpur. So, Praful Chaki and Khudiram Bose threw bomb on the carriage of this thing. He was saved, but instead, two women were killed. Okay, and these people, Praful Chaki shot himself dead, and rather he did not want to be arrested, but Khudiram Bose was arrested and later hanged. So these names, Praful Chaki and Khudiram Bose for Kingsford or Muzaffarpur bomb case. This is not Muzaffarnagar. This is Muzaffarpur. Muzaffarpur in Bihar. The time period is 1908. So UPSC has asked questions from here. So this I'm telling you again is important for 2025. Again, another very important conspiracy is Alipur conspiracy. Government used the opportunity to crack down on the Anushilan Samiti, and all its members were arrested, including Aurobindo Ghosh and his brother Bari Ghosh. Alipur conspiracy case in which Aurobindo himself was acquitted, but his brother and many other were sentenced to deportation and harsh prison terms. In 1908, at Bara, dacoity was organized by Dhaka Anushilan Samiti. So, like every organization has differences of opinion, these people also had differences of opinion. And these two split. One was Calcutta Anushilan Samiti, second was Dhaka Anushilan Samiti, which had more than 1500 branches. Under Pulendas to raise funds for the revolutionary activities. You see, these activities were kind of activities which shook the entire base of British government. Now, Indians are not only giving them reply in the legislative councils, where Indians are the members here till 1912. But Indians are also extremists who are killing them. Then, very important is Delhi conspiracy case. In 1912, bomb attack was attempted on Viceroy Hardinge when he entered the new capital in Delhi in a ceremonial procession through Chandni Chowk, and Viceroy and Lady Hardinge escaped with injuries, while most of the accused were tried and executed in Delhi conspiracy case, and Ras Bihari Bose managed to escape. Again, Ras Bihari Bose is very active, and that's how he goes to United States. Yugantar Group, the Western Anushilan Samiti under the leadership of Jatindranath Mukherjee and Bagga Jatin emerged Jatendra Mukherjee was called Baga Jatin because he had people used to call he was very Lahim Shame. That means he was very tall, he was very broad, and he had a strength of like a bag, like a tiger. That's why he's called Baga Jatin of Jugantar. During the First World War, the Yugantar party was involved in Indo-German conspiracy called as Zimmermann Plan to overthrow British rule in India. However, the plan failed and Bagga Jatin was shot dead in Balasore, Odisha in 1915, unfortunately. So what happens is, this is the second phase of it. They not only work inside India, they are working with Germany because Germany is against Britain in the First World War. So they do friendship with Germany and try to import German arms ammunitions so that they can fight with the Britishers. But it doesn't, materialize, and he has to die as a martyr. Zimmermann plan also is very, very important. Then, as I was talking about the second phase of it, which is outside India, the not only were the revolutionary activities prevalent in India, but various revolutionary activities were prevalent outside India. This is the second phase of it. To evade arrest, like Ras Bihari Bose, and censorship of press by the British, and the quest for arms brought Indian revolutionaries abroad. Some of the important revolutionary activities were, I talked about in 1905, Shyamji Krishna Varma started Indian Home Rule Society or Indian House. Indian Home Rule Society, Rule Society and India House as a center to promote nationalistic views and work. However, soon it became a major center for revolutionary activities outside India. V.D. Savarkar and Lala Hardayal were members of this house. The center was the General Indian Sociologist to spread the anti-colonial views. So who bought this? Lala Hardayal and Shyamji Krishna Varma, Indian Sociologist, was a revolutionary journal. Okay, then Madan Lal Dhingra, who were associated with India House, killed Curzon Willie, an Indian official in London. So these people were mobilizing Indians outside India, and these were kind of awakening Indian people, ex-soldiers, non-resident Indians, so that they could come to India, they could help Indian revolutionaries to sustain their arms race against the mighty British Empire. Somewhere I talked about the Zimmermann Plan, I talked about the activities of Indian sociologists, very important, Madan Lal Dhingra. Then I've also talked about Bhikaji Kama, a Parsi revolutionary, operated from Parsis, bought Vande Mataram. She had developed contacts with French socialists. So she was working in Paris. Okay, so she bought a journal called Vande Mataram. Ajit Singh, who was the uncle of Bhagat Singh, traveled across Europe in his quest to support revolutionary activities. In 1918, he came into the contact with Ghadar Party in San Francisco, and the headquarters of the Ghadar Party was called as the Jugantar House. This is very important. Jugantar. These people had links with the Punjabi revolutionaries also. Again, talking about the last point, Virendranath Chattopadhyay made Berlin his base after the deterioration of relations between Britain and Germany. He was involved in Zimmermann Plan, Indo-German plot to overthrow British rule in India. So they were not only direct confrontation when it comes to the First World War, there was also diplomatic confrontation where Germany and Britain were not only fighting in the Europe, they were also trying to overthrow each other's colonies. Start overthrow one's colony to other, as you see in the present context, Russia and USA are doing. At that point of time, Germany and Britain were openly supporting each other's enemies, where Zimmerman plan under Virendra Chattopadhyay was somewhere or the other, hatching a conspiracy for an armed rebellion, where Indian youth, Indian revolutionaries were given arms and ammunitions under these Chattopadhyay as per the Zimmerman plan. You see, that was the kind of thing that was happening. Again, I give you the example how Pakistanis are, starting a proxy war, or using a proxy war, because they cannot directly confront us. So they are mobilizing, they are manipulating the youth of Kashmir so that they could do rebellion against the Indian government. It's similar to that. Here, the Indian cause is much broader. Indian cause is legitimate. Indian cause is right, not wrong, as per if we compare and contrast. Then the Gadar movement. Very important point here is the Gadar party's revolutionary group set up in Indian expatriates, means the people who are living outside India, to overthrow British rule in India. The British Gadar activities were carried by Lala Hardayal and Taraknath Das. Basically, Gadar newspaper was also written in Urdu. These were organizing Indian students and immigrants to nationalist cause. Various aspects of Gadar movements are: it was at the coast of Canada and United States, with the headquarter at San Francisco, and it bought Gadar, which was, you see, it's very uh, 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 weird nowadays to use Urdu, because Urdu is considered to be a language of Muslims. But now, when we were talking about the biggest, if I may use the term, the biggest revolutionary activities, and the journal they used was published in Urdu. The movement was mandated to organize assassinations of unpopular officials, publish revolutionary anti-imperialist literature, procure arms, as I was saying, work among the Indian soldiers stationed abroad, and coordinate with the revolutionaries in other British colonies. That was the main aim, to mobilize Indian soldiers, because 80% of the British soldiers were Sikh Indians. If they are mobilized, then there is a chance that Indians will be rising against the mighty British Empire. Lala Hardayal was an Oxford graduate. Barkatullah Bhai Premanand, Kartar Singh Sarbana, Ramchandra, and Bhagwan Singh. Lala Hardayal was an Oxford graduate who was instrumental to Gadar movement. So these are the kind of questions you may expect. There was a question on 1942 Quit India movement. There have been questions on Cripps mission this year. They may ask questions about Revel plan, cabinet mission. So this is very important, and these are the points you should take away with you. So a lot of other things are there. The time period from 1935 to 1947, the whole timeline of it, the elections of 1937, communal politics, August offer, Cripps mission, Desai Liaquat Plan, C. Rajagopali Formula, Vival Plan, Cabinet Mission Plan. So you all know about these things, and the chronology, the time period, the impact, the starting of 1939, Second World War till 1945, along with a bit of international relations around that time period. Everything has to be understood, has to be studied carefully. So this is, I don't think this is too much. This is revisable in even 2 weeks if you have studied, done 2 or 3 readings of the Spectrum book. All I'm trying to say is giving you the right direction. I'll come up with all these things. You can come up with your productive suggestions. Thank you so much.